Hey, Husker fans, Sam McKewon with the Omaha World-Herald and Husker Extra, and we've reached Senior Day for Nebraska football in 2024, and this is the three keys to Nebraska's game against Wisconsin. Well, here we are, 5-5, the Huskers, so are the Badgers, 5-5, both teams battling for a bowl game. The winner, because there are no ties anymore in college football, the winner of Saturday's game will have qualified for a bowl. Wisconsin's done that a lot in the last 9 years. Nebraska has not. Nebraska has not been to a bowl game since the 2016 season. This is the opportunity for the Huskers. I do think they have a decent chance of winning. This is week 2 for Dana Holgorsen and an important game for defensive coordinator Tony White, who struggled at times last year against the Badgers, who have now fired the offensive coordinator Phil Longo, who gave Nebraska some fits last season in the final 3 quarters of Wisconsin's 24-17 win over the Huskers. Okay, are you ready? Are you ready? Does Nebraska win this game? Here we go. Key number 1, crank it up, and I mean that for the fans and for the team. I think the fans, first of all, they haven't seen a lot of Nebraska football in the last month, right? I mean, Nebraska's been on the road for 3 of the last 4 games, at Indiana, at Ohio State, then they played at home against UCLA, didn't play very well, and then at USC. This is the last home game of the year. Nebraska fans have to bring it at 2:30 on Saturday. It's going to be around dusk, around the time fourth quarter hits. Nebraska has to crank up the noise and the energy. They have to bring it. They have to help the Husker football team try to qualify for a bowl game. I do think Nebraska's fans will be there, and they will show up, and they will have a vocal impact on the game. They need to. The team needs to crank it up too. Whatever Nebraska's energy level has been prior to this game, this has to be the one where Nebraska brings it from the very, very start. It has to be the most important game of the season. And you can say, well, the most important game is always the next one. And the reality is, folks, teams get up and down a little bit for different games, but Nebraska's lost 10 in a row to the Badgers, and here is the chance at home to end that long bowl drought. And Wisconsin is not a super dominant team, right? They are not a team that Nebraska can say, well, we're probably not going to beat them. They're not Oregon. They're not Ohio State. Is Wisconsin good enough to take Oregon to the wire? Yes, they are. Was Nebraska good enough to take Ohio State to the wire? Yes, it was. And so it's one of those kind of games where these teams have the potential to be really good, but ultimately they've been inconsistent all season. Nebraska has to crank it up for its final home game. Key number 2, super seniors, and Nebraska's got a bunch of them. They got a lot of older guys on this team who haven't just been in college for 4 years, but they've in some cases been in there for 5 and 6. These are the guys that really need to show up. Ty Robinson is one. I think he will show up. Isaac Gifford is another. I think he'll show up too. Jamal Banks, Isaiah Nayor. We'll see if we get Ramir Johnson. I'm not sure. He's a little bit banged up. We'll see if we get him. Ben Scott, Bryce Benhart, Micah Mazuka. The old guys have to play their best game. It's one last time on Memorial Stadium turf. You've got to push it all the way. Take it to the limit, so to speak. John Bullock is another one. There's a bunch of guys on this team. This is the last time they're going to play, right? Now they're going to have 19 listed seniors. They're going to have 29 or 30 guys walking. There's a really good chance that most of these guys are moving on. You could see some surprising names walk. You just never really know. Sometimes players are ready to get out of school after 4 seasons. And so this is a really important game, I think, for those older guys to be able to put their imprint on it and say, yeah, before we left, we got Nebraska back to a bowl game. So watch how those super seniors play. And key number 3, leave no trace. And by that I mean this. Let's be honest, Nebraska has really struggled late in games over the last, 7 or 8 years. It's been a long, long time since Nebraska has won a game on its final drive, since 2019. But even before that, Nebraska really struggled late in the last 4 or 5 minutes of the fourth quarter. And of course, Matt Rule wants to get his team to a point where they win games in the last 4 minutes of the fourth quarter, but that's just not where this team is. It hasn't been where they were against Ohio State or UCLA or USC or Illinois. That's just not what Nebraska's been really good at, folks. And so what Nebraska has an opportunity to do is not leave it up to the last 4 minutes of the game. Nebraska needs to take a 10 to 14 point lead into those final moments, because I've seen what happens when Nebraska doesn't do that. Somehow they get beat at the end. They got beat at the end against Wisconsin in 2021, beat at the end in 2022, beat in overtime in 2023. It happens a lot. You've got to have a game where you don't leave any doubt, you leave no trace of doubt late in that game. Nebraska should be up 10 to 14 points with 5 minutes left in this game. I think then you feel comfortable about finishing it off, and that's been an issue for Nebraska. That's why they can't worry and say, well, we're going to body blow them at the end. The reality is, until you get to a point where you're consistent on offense, and Dana Holgorsen has not probably gotten this offense to that point yet, it's very hard to finish at the end. This is a game where Nebraska needs to stake a 10 to 14 point lead with 5 minutes left. Not going into the fourth quarter, 5 minutes left. They need to finish it on the field, 4-minute drive at the end, put this game away before it has to be put away at the end by a late drive. Okay, those are the 3 keys to Nebraska, Wisconsin. Crank it up, super seniors, and leave no trace. We'll see what happens. We'll have full coverage of the game. I'm Sam McKewon with the Omaha World-Herald and Husker Extra.